Here's question 12. Says a government imposes a specific indirect tax on a product, and when will the tax cause the greatest reduction in consumer surplus for the buyers of the product? Let's see, greatest reduction in consumer surplus. Oh, if demand is inelastic, that will have a huge effect, right? So demand is inelastic, supply is elastic, or maybe it doesn't matter. But I think if demand is inelastic, then the effect of a tax is much higher on the consumer surplus, for the buyers. So the answer should be the product has price inelastic demand. Here's the part I had trouble with. And price elastic supply or price inelastic supply. Well, I think the elasticity of supply doesn't matter. I calculated it. I even drew graphs, look, with different colors. And I think the supply curve rotates on the demand curve, and we can increase the tax. We decrease consumer surplus, of course, and producer surplus, but I don't see where the supply curve affects consumer surplus. But the demand curve, see, this is, your maybe a one-to-one demand curve. Obviously, an inelastic demand curve would have much more consumer surplus. So much more effect on price inelastic demand. Maybe they were thinking about incidence of tax. Incidence of tax. And in incidence of tax, if the demand curve is very inelastic and the supply curve is elastic, then you can see that the buyers or the consumers pay most of the tax and the sellers pay a little of the incidence of tax if demand is highly inelastic and supply is elastic. Really, they say the answer is C. I couldn't figure out an answer between C and D. Oh, and the examiner's report says the answers were evenly distributed. So that was interesting. Hey, let's do 13. It's probably more clear.